is a kind of silence that makes people uncomfortable. Not the silence of weakness, not the silence of fear, but the silence that protests and does not explain itself. In ancient Japan, warriors believed that the loudest man in the room was already defeated. The most dangerous one was the one who said nothing. This is the story of how silence became a weapon, and why your need to speak may be the very thing making you weak. Chapter 1. The awakening. He spoke too much. Not because he was arrogant, but because he was uncertain. Every conversation became a performance. Every meeting, a defense. Every silence felt like exposure. When someone challenged him, he rushed to explain himself. When ignored, he tried harder to be seen. When uncertain, he filled the space with words, hoping clarity would arrive through noise, but it never did. The more he spoke, the less people listened. The more he explained, the less he was respected. The more he tried to control how others perceived him, the more invisible he became. At night, he replayed conversations in his mind, what he should have said, how he sounded, how he was judged. He felt constantly on trial. Modern psychology would say he lacked confidence, social skills, presence. But Zen saw something else entirely. The problem was not that he lacked words. It was that he lacked stillness. In ancient Japan, this man would not have been taught to speak better. He would have been taught to be silent until silence reshaped him. Chapter 2. The ancient system, the Ronin, did not speak to assert dominance. He spoke only when reality demanded it. Zen taught that speech is energy. Every word spent is a blade drawn from its sheath, and a blade drawn too often grows dull. Bushido, the way of the warrior, treated silence as discipline. Not passivity, not avoidance, but restraint. A samurai trained for years to control the impulse to react, to observe before responding, to let others reveal themselves through their impatience. The Ronin understood something modern men forgot. The one who rushes to speak is still negotiating with himself. The one who remains silent has already decided who he is. Silence was not emptiness. It was compression, like steel folded again and again. Pressure, heat, restraint, and from that, restraint presence was born. Chapter 3. The internal war silence feels unbearable at first. The body rebels. The mind panics. Neuroscience shows that the brain seeks stimulation when uncertain. Talking becomes self-soothing. Explaining becomes reassurance. Noise becomes control. When you stay silent, your nervous system screams. Say something. Defend yourself. Fill the gap. This is the internal. Zen interpreted this resistance not as weakness but as purification. Every urge to speak was an attachment to approval, to certainty, to being seen as enough. The Ronin trained himself to sit inside that discomfort, to let the urge pass like wind through tall grass. And each time he did, something shifted. His mind sharpened, his awareness expanded. His presence deepened. He no longer needed to interrupt life to prove himself. Life began to respond to him without being asked. Chapter 4. The one path. The path was simple. Not easy, but simple. Say less. Observe more. The Ronin adopted one rule. Never speak to reduce discomfort. Speak only to reveal truth. This rule terrifies the modern mind because modern identity is built on constant output. Posting, explaining, reacting. Performing not silence feels like disappearance. But Bushido demanded the opposite. The warrior's power came from containment. In battle, wasted motion meant death. In life, wasted speech meant loss of authority. The Ronin knew that presence grows when words retreat. People leaned in, they waited, they adjusted, not because he demanded attention, but because silence forced others to confront themselves. Chapter 5. Practice without gaps. In discipline allows no gaps. You are either silent or you are not. There is no sometimes. Water that flows constantly cuts stone. Water that stops becomes stagnant. The Ronin practiced silence everywhere, in disagreement, in praise, in insult, in uncertainty. That modern psychology confirms this. Consistency rewires identity faster than intensity. Every time you pause instead of reacting, your nervous system learns safety. Every time you resist filling the space, your presence strengthens silence. becomes a reflex, and once it does, you are no longer controlled by emotion. You control the room without moving. Chapter 6, Persecution. Sentient warriors prepared for silence before they needed it. Before battle, the Ronin rehearsed restraint. Before insult, he accepted it. Before provocation, he decided who he would. This is pre-decision. Modern men wait until temptation arrives. The Ronin removed the choice in advance. He knew, if you decide in the moment, you have already lost in work meetings, in relationships, in conflict. You decide now. When criticized, die observe. When misunderstood, die wait. When ignored, die remain still. This is not submission. It is sovereignty. Chapter 7, The Transformation Over Time. Something died. The man who needed to be heard. The man who feared being invisible. The man who equated silence with weakness. And something else was born. A presence that did not rush. A calm that unsettled others. A stillness that commanded space without demand. The Ronin did not become dangerous by speaking louder. He became dangerous by becoming unmoved, and so will you. Because the man who controls his silence, controls his reactions, controls his energy, controls himself. And a man who controls himself needs no words to be respected.